I'm very excited to be talking to you guys today about Research Made Fun. And this is something that kind of came about because it's what my kids wanted. And I'm a big believer in if the kids want to do it, that's what we should be doing in our classrooms. And so that's where the research projects came from. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to kind of talk to you about why we do the research projects, then I'm going to walk you through what one looks like, and then I'm just going to show you a bunch of different examples of the research projects that we have in our classroom. So our projects, this is how we do science and social studies in our classroom, and this is kind of the curriculum that we use all year, and it's integrated into our ELA block. And so when we're doing these research projects, even though we're meeting science and social studies standards, we're covering them in the ELA block because we're also hitting those standards as well. This is when we get the research and the writing, and the research is hard for kindergarten because our kids aren't able to read and comprehend on their own very well. And so that's where I struggled for a long time. How can we do this research and writing in kindergarten and meet those standards? And so that's where I created the research projects, was to make it kindergarten friendly. It also brings in those critical thinking skills, higher order thinking, vocabulary, and informational and nonfiction text as well. So all of our research projects start with schema maps. And this is something that's I've been doing for a couple of years, so it's fairly new to our classroom. They're very similar to what a KWL chart would be, but with the schema map, we start off with our schema, which is what the kids already know. And so when the kids share their schema, it's whatever they share with me about dinosaurs goes on a Post-it note and it goes on our schema map. And so we do them for all of our research projects, and you try to make them cute. And so I picked my favorites because these look really good. So I'm very proud of my dinosaur and my penguin. When I did the tractor for our farm unit, the kids thought we were going to learn about race cars. So apparently I can't draw a tractor. So we put on all the schema, and then as we're going through our research project and as we're learning about dinosaurs or penguins, we put on the new learning. So all of the new learning is added. And then we have the misconceptions. And that's the hardest part for us to understand, is the misconceptions are not necessarily wrong. They're just where our thinking might need to be fixed. And so I always use the dinosaur as an example because the kids always say, dinosaurs eat dinosaurs. Well, that's true for some dinosaurs, but not all dinosaurs. And so that would be a misconception. And so then as we're going through the research project, we're able to adjust that thinking and correct that thinking, and that would be a misconception. And so at the end of the research project, we go back to our schema, we read over all of the schema, and we talk about whether, was it right, was our thinking right, and if it's not, if it's a misconception, we fix that thinking and that misconception, and then we move it to the misconception. So that's what our schema maps are. So there's the one for plants, rainbows. And so then those stay up in our classroom all year as a visual reminder. And so after our schema maps, we move into the actual research part of our research projects, and it starts with a read aloud. And that's how the research is conducted in kindergarten for us, is it's all done through a read aloud, and a lot of times YouTube videos also. So as we're reading aloud and doing the research, we're creating our tree map. And so we do the tree map during the read aloud. We don't do it after the read aloud, because when you do it after the read aloud, that's a form of assessment. And so I don't want it to be an assessment for my kids. I want it to be, as we're reading, we're recording all of our learning and our thinking on our tree map. And then the kids take the tree map, and that's how they do their writing. So they're able to take the information from the tree map and write about what we're learning about. And then as part of the research projects, we label. And so this is where the vocabulary is coming in. So we're learning the vocabulary. So we learned about peacocks. So we labeled the peacocks, and then, of course, the kids are going to do it on their own as well. And then with every research project we do, there's art included, because I'm a passionate believer about bringing art and fun back into the classroom. And so part of our research project, this would be done during our science and social studies block in the afternoon, because we've integrated the curriculum into the ELA block. So now we have time in the afternoon to do our art projects. And so the kids would do an art project. So we did our peacocks. So we made our peacock out of our feet and our handprints. And then this was the one we did this year with paper. And so every time we learn about something with our research project, there's going to be some art included. And so for higher order thinking, we do a lot of true-false sorting. So we learn about rainbows, and we read the statements, and we have to decide if they're true or false, which for our early childhood kids, that's a harder skill. So that's where they're getting some of that higher order thinking. We do brace maps when we're talking about the parts of something. So we do the parts of a spider, we do the parts of a pumpkin, the parts of a fire truck. And so that's where we're also learning some vocabulary, some more tree maps. So here's our tree maps about astronauts. And then in order for the kids to go on our space research project and go into the solar system, they had to be hired as an astronaut. So we learned all about what astronauts do. Then the kids filled out their astronaut application. And so then I had to decide if they got to be hired or not. And so luckily everyone got hired this year, so everybody got to be an astronaut. And so when we went into space, we learned about each planet, and they filled out their information sheet about the planets. So again, very similar structure with the tree map and the read aloud and the videos for the research. And then the writing was going to look a little bit different depending on what we're learning about what the research project is all about. So here we are again with polar bears. So we learned all about the polar bears, and the kids did the writing. The writing is differentiated, so you can either do it with the sentence frames or without the sentence frames. So depending on where we are in the year, how the kids are doing with their writing. So here's an example of the writing without the sentence frames. So they took all of that information, and they did their writing. So this is our Black History Month research project. So it looks a little bit different. And so as we learned about each person, we made these anchor charts, and then the kids filled out their research journal. And here's one with zoo animals where they actually drew a picture of the zoo animal as they were doing their writing. And then because so much of our research projects are science-based, we do a lot of hands-on science as part of those research projects. So one of my favorites is the push and pull research project. So we learned all about forces and motion. So at the end of our push and pull unit, we had a tug-of-war championship with all of the kindergarten classes. And so I will have to say my kids won. And it might have been because we were going downhill, and so we had a slight advantage. And of course, if you're going to learn about push and pull, and you're going to have to eat a push pop. So at the end of our push and pull unit, all the kids got push pops. So we did float and sink with our pumpkins, and then we made pumpkin pie. So we incorporate a lot of hands-on science and a lot of cooking and food as part of our research projects. And then, like I said, there's a lot of art involved with the research projects, and so we're always trying to do art projects. So this was actually one of the art projects we did for space, and it was the assessment for my kids to see if they could remember the planets in order and put them in order. So each of the kids created their own picture of the solar system and labeled them, and then that was our assessment piece. And then so we do a lot of directed drawings as part of our research projects, and the directed drawings are great for listening and speaking skills and following directions, and each of the drawings turns out totally different with great personality from the kids. And then another one of my favorites is Holidays Around the World. And so every day we travel to a different country, and we learn about how they celebrate Christmas. And so for each country, we go there on Google Maps. So the kids get an airplane ticket. We get on our airplane, and we fly to that country. We learn about the country, we read a book, and then we make a little art project. And then we also eat food from all of the countries. My favorite one is when we go to England, and the kids, I let them watch the video of the Queen giving her Christmas Day speech, and they are mesmerized by her. Like, they sit there for 10 minutes and listen to every word she says, and they're just mesmerized by the Queen. And then another good one is plants. And so we made a Venus flytrap when we learned about plants. And, of course, he has the fly in his mouth so he can eat his fly. And a couple of more of our research, a little art projects. The shark. The rainbow was actually done with marshmallows. And so the kids dipped the marshmallows in the paint and made the rainbow. And then our last research project of the year is camping. And so we go camping in the classroom, and so we made our s'mores, and the kids made a fire with their handprints. And so these are all of the research projects that we do in the classroom. And so, like I said, this is our curriculum for the entire year. This is how we do a lot of our ELA standards and all of our science and social studies standards. And we pull in those really challenging research and writing standards into the classroom. All right. Any questions? The standards are all listed in the research projects, as well as all of the read-aloud books that we use. So it's all included. And all of the art projects are on my blog, so you can see what we do with the art projects and the food as well. All right. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.